Hello and welcome to another AIC video. I'm actually in the middle of recording another video and I thought I'd take time to update the thermal paste on my HP zBook 14 Gen 2 or G2. This has the 5th Gen Core i7 5500U and an AMD FirePro M4150. I've owned this laptop a couple years now, and one thing I haven't done to it is ever replace the thermal paste. So I'm pretty sure this is running the factory thermal paste. I'll show you why here in a minute. This laptop's not necessarily easy to do that job. It's not hard, but it's more than just what some of my ThinkPads are. But what I wanted to do is go ahead and actually do two benchmarks, one prior to doing the thermal paste update and one after, just to see what the performance difference is, if any. I'm not expecting there to be much of a temperature difference. These laptops are designed to ramp up their CPUs and GPUs as hot as they'll go, but then the real thing is how much performance you get out of it with being able to dissipate that heat. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to readjust the screen so we can see the screen of the laptop, or readjust the camera so we can see the screen of the laptop, and then we will run those benchmarks. Alright, so we have performance test benchmark up and going, the pass mark benchmark, and we have hardware monitor on the right, just so we can get a capture of the temperatures as well as the clock speeds that we're able to hit, and we'll take a screenshot of those and then also of the final score. So we'll go ahead and hit run. Alright, benchmark is done, and we have a score. Score is what it is. It's not great. We have a 3D mark of 946, and we have a CPU mark of 3217. That's about what I expect for the CPU mark. Graphics mark is pretty low, I think. Some other numbers that are important. We did peak at 102 degrees Celsius, which I expected to peak at that because that's like the temperature that it will get up to. It'll push to that point, and then it will throttle the CPU down. The watts for the CPU package is 17.4. The graphics clocks, those are the max. That's what they max out at. 715 megahertz for the graphics and 1000 megahertz for the memory. Utilization obviously went to 100%. Voltages, it gives a GPU voltage of 0.975 volts. I don't think that will change. So what we'll do is we will go ahead at this point. I will turn the computer off, flip her over, and we will get looking into why I haven't updated the thermal paste yet. All right, so we have the system open. We've taken out the battery, taking out the SSD here. I'd forgotten that the seller included this 3D printed thing to hold it into place. That's whatever. The reason why I haven't done it yet is there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 screws that need to be removed before the bottom piece comes off. None of them are captive. There's 3 different, or I guess 2 of them are captive, and there's 3 types of non-captive screws. So we'll start off with the Phillips head because I have that out already. Have one under this SD card slot, and then you have these that are under the battery. Now I'm going to switch to a flathead, a small flathead. Not because I have a screw that's a flathead, but to pull out all those rubber dust cover things. And I'm using my screwdriver bit set that I bought on Amazon. I'll include a link to this in the video description. It's been a nice set. The bits have held up well. We'll go ahead and get going on the Torx bits now. Oh, there were 2 more Phillips heads. I'll have to get those in a second. All right, now it should pull free. Without any drama, yeah. And this is metal, so this is a nice sturdy piece. And that's one thing I love about this laptop is this is a very sturdy laptop. It's very well built. That's magnesium. All right, now we actually have access to the CPU and cooler. And then we'll just start in order. Loosen these up. Those should all be loose now. And that thermal paste is pretty crusty. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, this is not completely necessary, but if you look at the heatsink here, there's this flap here, and this actually isn't too dirty at all, but there's this flap here, and I don't know how to get this back under the fan, so I'm actually going to remove the fan while I'm thinking about it, so that way we get that out of the way, and then it will be placed down. It has 2 captive screws. Okay. We'll go ahead and we have some Q-tips here. That's rubbing alcohol. pick up. Go to the GPU. It's non-conductive, but I still don't want to get it in and among the cracks there. Sorry, not cracks, the surface mounted, the space between the surface mounted components. Some alcohol and a paper towel and wipe off the heat sink itself. Make sure we give this one last good clean. All right. Make sure that there's nothing left. This is a dry Q-tip. So make sure there's no residue left behind. Alright, and this is some Noctua NH212 or whatever it is. I just peeled the label off of it because I can never leave enough alone with labels. And don't come at me with how much thermal paste I'm using. I'll spread that out here. I have a dented and well played Pokemon card that we'll use to get that That's good enough. Pressure and heat will spread that out. Let's go ahead and get this back on. And you just tighten these going around the star pattern just a little bit at a time. All right, so we're back up. Everything's back together. We're gonna go ahead and rerun those benchmarks and see what, if any, improvement there is. All right, so the test has finished. Let's go ahead and bring up the previous scores and do a stare and compare. So for, where is this? So we got a better overall score, which is what we'd expect. The CPU mark was slightly down. I've had this score be all over the place with it, plus or minus about 1 to 3%. Just depending on when I started it and how many times in a row I've run it. So I'm not too concerned about, what is that, 7-point difference. The 2D mark is exactly the same. The 3D mark, though, did go up by almost 300 points. So that's what, almost a 30% increase in performance. The memory mark stayed about the same, and so did the disk mark. What was more interesting is, if I move this over here, it's a little bit bigger. So the CPU temperature maxed out at 102 on the previous test, and it only got up to 94 degrees on the most recent test. And even that, well, that's an 8-degree difference, which is huge, especially for these mobile systems. It used less power for a similar score. Let's see. Down here for the GPU, hit 75 degrees both times, but we did get a much better score with that. So my assumption is that it was able to sustain a higher, sustain the load longer than it was previously before the thermal paste. So definitely, if you have a computer that's more than 2 or 3 years old, I think it's definitely worth taking the time to go ahead and replace the thermal paste on your system. I actually typically do it even on new systems I get, because the stuff like this Noctua, there's a bunch of different brands out there that are much better than whatever the factory paste is that they put on there. I personally don't run liquid metal just because I don't feel like, for me personally, that it's enough of a difference to run liquid metal, but definitely a high quality thermal paste makes a big difference in the longevity of your system. It just means that your system will last longer because it's running cooler and running better. And so yeah, that is the results I get from upgrading the thermal paste on this notebook. This came out in, I want to say, 2016, so that's 8 years ago. So that thermal paste is probably 8 years old, and so definitely well worth doing, and it was absolutely time to do it. Anyways, thank you for watching. Hope you have an amazing day.